Good afternoon. My name is Michael, and thank you for joining us today. We've got a superhero that's on the show, but Perez is right now. She is running. She's about 88 miles in the book right now for her campaign. But we're also going to be talking about the lost generation of 2020. And so this is going to be more like a fireside chat. And so I'm excited that to see not only her journey, but then the topic that we have before us today. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Perez and share with us a little bit about your journey and what are you doing right now?
Well, thank you, Michael, for the introduction. I'm actually in the Central Valley. I stopped at, for those of you that do not know, there is a Run With Me, or We Run for Change campaign, and that's part of the Vista Vote Perez VVP 2020. And a lot of the reason why I've decided to do something of this, people say, well, what are you doing? Why is she running? That's crazy amount of miles. It's 215 miles. And why start from Fort Tejon? The reason why I'm starting from Fort Tejon and the reason why I decided to run is because a lot of what we're seeing today in America and a lot of our within our state as well, there just has to be the truth of our actual history. And so many people within our state, even California Native Americans, don't even know all of the story regarding what exactly happened to our ancestors and ancestors to where this affects me, my generation. I was generation in 78, direct influence, which we call generational PTSD, from those effects from that generational trauma that was passed down. And so that's the deeper answer. The short answer is my tribe in around the late to mid 1800s, because there was a time frame where Norfolk Rancheria actually was all Mono Nation, and Mono Nation was all one, and we were a nomadic tribe. And when it was hot, we went to the mountains. When it was cool in the mountains, when it was cold and snowing, we went down to the valley. That didn't work out so well with a lot of of course, the gold rush era. And then you have a lot of the farmers and the settlers coming to the valley wanting to grow their crops, which happened to be the same land as our people. So with that, there was a lot of tragedy and war. And from there, we were forced marched from Madera County to Fort Tejon, which Fort Tejon, if those of you don't know where that is, it's at the basin, the lower level of the Grapevine. And that's right before the 5 intersects with the 99. So pretty long way, right? So from that, forced march to the Grapevine, and ensuring that the natives were no longer a threat. So actually, that Fort Tejon used to be, back in the day, an Indian prison camp here in California. And there were several of them throughout our state. And so our tribe wasn't the only tribe that suffered this. This is actually something that for Fort Tejon basically housed practically most of the Central Valley natives, and just about every Central Valley Native tribe that existed back then was forced marched to Fort Tejon. There were also Chumash there, which was Chumash, if you're familiar with the California geography, that's out in this Santa Barbara area. So there are Chumash there, and there were, of course, some of the, as we know, Los Angeles tribes there, and some San Diego as well. Even today, we have issues with the California native water rights issues, because again, this land was taken away. So not just our tribe, but other tribes are having this issue with land rights, water rights, and basically survival rights, right? Uh, when we were not a threat anymore back in the late 1800s, they let us go. And my point of this run is to run from Fort Tahome back to Madeira, which is home for our tribe. And that message is to say, we are still here. We still exist. And unfortunately, a lot of the historical issues that we had faced years ago, even though it was years ago, people say, oh my gosh, get over it. What happened years ago? No, we can't get over it because it still affects us today. And actually, without saying too much, and it's no secret because it's in the newspapers, my tribe is still in litigation over this land. And I'm sure there's other tribes within the state that's also dealing with similar issues. So with that, I'm speaking as a tribal citizen, and I know I'm running locally in Vista, but this is my personal story and how it's affected me. My grandfather was taken away when he was a child and placed in a boarding school, away from his family, not even knowing this other family, to be basically colonized. He wasn't allowed to speak. Then, before 1978, July of 1978, before the Native American Indian Act was passed, it was illegal. It was a federal offense to speak Indian language. It was illegal to have ceremony, illegal to pray. Can you imagine that? Just being stripped of who you know yourself to be, who your family is, and to not basically exist and conform to something else, and to be suppressed and have that. I say it's like this knot in my throat because I, just being myself and sharing these kinds of thoughts, this is who we are as people. And for so many years, it wasn't like a thing, really. It was actually pretty confidential that you're Indian. And I remember growing up, I never said I was. I didn't have a whole lot much growing up, and my grandmother and my grandmother, she wasn't taken to a boarding school. She did live in a tent when she was a child. So my tribe is one of many tribes here in California that is considered a landless tribe. We no longer have our land, and the land that we do have, we had to buy from the state, purchasing back our own land. It's like it was stolen, and hey, guess what? You get to pay for it. And then on top of that, after the land was taken and we got to buy it back, and we're trying to buy back pieces of our land, historical land. But then there's players that are non-native that are, and actually it's on their website, I'm not going to say who, but they make a point to take away native land and trust. Yes, it is not a secret. They put it out there for the whole world to see. And this instance, we just ended our last session, hopefully in court. We don't know what that outcome is going to be. It was early June, and right around the George Floyd time frame. And I think with all of this happening, with the pandemic, with the issues of systemic government barriers and these hurdles, and certain groups of people not being able to express who they are, to endure. My family, most of the males in my family have been incarcerated. Yes. So I understand a lot of these struggles. I was, the first to finish high school. I was the first to finish a 4-year degree, and then the first in my family as a woman to join the military. So there was a lot of firsts for me, not even really knowing it, but it was just more of wanting me to succeed. And my grandmother always said, who's Mono, she always said, you let people know that we're here. You tell them that we're here. My grandmother, I think maybe because of the harsh times she lived in, I love my grandmother, and I don't know if she's watching, but she has that grandma sense, but she's a grandma with tough skin. And whenever I had a moment of having that doubt in myself growing up, she told me to snap out of it. And I really have to say a lot of the reason why the person I am today is has to do a lot with my grandmother, my mother, my father, who's he also served in the military army. And so that's my fight. And people thought, oh my gosh, you're going to run 215 miles. That's crazy. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's pretty nuts, especially since, I don't go out there doing this kind of thing. I used to run track and cross country back when I was a lot younger, over 20 years ago. But it's something I don't do now. But I think with everything going on, it's almost like, what do you do, right? Do you sit back and watch? And we all have this fire in our belly, this moment in our lives where there's so much just going on, and there has to be an answer. This can't just be the way things are. And I do not see that as an answer. Things should not be this way. And the reason why I'm running for our future. I'm running because my experience in Sacramento as a deputy secretary, there wasn't nil. There was basically nil representation of Native Americans in Sacramento. And I'm just being very frank about that. And so this run is to encourage other natives to get out there and run too. Not literally run, but run for office, run for local office, run for county, state, federal. We have to be there because, take a look at November 2018. Our first elected official was just voted on. Our first California elected official, Native elected official, was just voted into office. 2018. Yeah, that's where we're at today. That's why I'm running. Because I have all that bottled up, and it's been bottled up for a while. Now I have to get this out. And part of that getting it out is running. And yes, I forget what day it is, honestly. But, I never thought I could, I know I've done one marathon in my life, again, much younger, 20 years ago, maybe 15, I'm not sure who's counting. But, and I've done halves plenty of times and 10K, 5K. But this is on another level. It's basically running over a marathon a day, pretty much. So my body went into shock the first day, mentally, and went to shock, and my body went to shock. But I started kind of thinking, we're all in shock, right, of everything happening. And so now we're at this tipping point where there's got to be answers. And so the run is kind of become a little easier in some sense. So enough about that. But I just wanted to share that background and why I'm running. And it's been a beautiful journey and meeting a lot of amazing people along the way. And, Central Valley has so much history. You're talking like the farm workers, Cesar Chavez from Delano to Sacramento. And we just passed Delano today. We're in Corcoran on our way over to Hanford. Oh, can we leave it there, Michael? So this is interesting. So this is Fort Tejon, the plaque there. My son pointed this out, and this was, you're talking 4 a.m. on June 30th, and he goes, Mom, we got in a car and we were about to head out. He said, that plaque right there where the brick wall is. He goes, did you read it? And I said, well, yeah, I read like parts of it. And he goes, no, but did you read it? He said, and in there, let's see, this Fort Tejon was put together for the protection of the Indians. That's not true. It wasn't for the protection. So part of what we need to do in America is start with the true history of how things really went down, how things really happened. Before we get well as a country, before we are able to make any change, there must be a time of reflection and taking a look at why things are the way they are and why there's so many protests. Because it's time, America, it's time, community, it's time, local government, state government, all of the above, that we have that reflection period and that we have people within office that represent our communities. Without the proper representation, guess what? It's a continuous cycle. It is a continuous cycle, and trust me, I know about those cycles, especially the bad ones. As I see those within generations, and we're going to continue this historical cycle of suppressing the truth. When there's suppression of the truth, there's suppression of people. When there's suppression of people, then there's systemic barriers within our government that don't allow change. And with that comes a lot of the problems you see today. So that's why we're here, right? That's my son there. So the topic of today is, and I wanted to have a guest, and then part of that guest would be my daughter. Sorry, I'm trying to move around here. Part of that guest would be my daughter, but and the reason why I wanted to invite my daughter because she actually gave the title of, she said, Mom, she's a young voter, she's 19 years old, and she said, I think we're the new lost generation. We're the lost generation of 2020. And I said, no, you're not. And she goes, Mom, look at it. Look at it. This is like, it's awful. Look at everything that's happening today. Like, do I even have a future? And that like nearly brought me to tears. But I have to admit that she sounds pretty accurate here because, she was born in 2001, 9/11 happened. And then not too long after, there's the 2008 recession, which I was also, of course, a part of and experienced a good brunt of that recession, and also experienced homelessness, and been through a lot. My daughter's been through a lot, and it really, really just I think that leaves that mark on her. I'm not sure. I'm seeing who she's evolving to as a young adult, and I'm hearing her, and we do have like these political conversations around the dinner table, and I'm trying to understand the young voters. And I know in Vista, the city of Vista, there's a lot of young people, a lot of young registered voters. I think the average age in Vista is around 24 or early 20s to maybe 34 or 36. No, not 36. I would say early 30s. And so I can't help but think about that. And then add on that, the other things that these kids have to worry about, which I didn't have to worry about too much, was, they have these school shooting drills. And this is the truth. This is just how real this is to me. And it's like, when all this was happening, I was a bit numb, because the same day the governor had placed the shelter in place closure, my son, and that day was a bit nuts, because that day we got calls because there was an active shooter at his campus, and trying to even recover from that. And he goes to school with his father in Carlsbad. It turned out that everything was okay, but still, to get that message, I mean, my heart dropped. But that's something that happened that day, and then 4 hours later, maybe 5 hours later, we have a government, the state shut down due to a pandemic, and it was just a very numb day. And that's when I realized, like, wow, this is where we're at. And taking a look at that, and then all of the issues that are being brought to light due to George Floyd, those are issues that have been around for a long time, and it's more of that silent racism. It hasn't gone away. It just was covered up in other ways, and it still exists. And I do believe that, unfortunately, this generation, they have a lot of challenges ahead of them. And that's what I want to talk about. So this is, I would say, episode 1, because there's so much that is happening, and I do want to hear our generation. I don't really want to call them the lost generation, because I don't believe that they are lost. I believe they're angry, and I hear that from my daughter. She's angry. She's 19 and she's angry. Luckily, she's putting that anger back into getting active locally. And so she's not with my campaign, but Congressman Levin's campaign. And she's volunteering there and doing some other amazing things. But she's trying to channel that anger into something positive. So she's very active. And I've been taking a look at other young voters and wanting to understand, what do they feel? How do they feel? Do they want to get involved? What does that involvement look like? I think us, as my generation and older, we should be talking to our young generation. And also, we should absolutely be talking to our elders, right? Because if we don't talk to our elders and find out what mistakes were happened in the past, we want to make sure we don't make that same mistake, because we've done many mistakes, in terms of what we're doing in terms of Mother Earth, and what we're doing environmentally, and also even the building without thinking ahead for our communities, and instead of fast food restaurants and all of the developments that are going on that have no meaning and purpose for our community, that don't provide family centers, even technology centers and entrepreneurship hubs to create new jobs, new businesses for our local economy. Those type of things we should be taking a look at. And it's not about, well, who will pay for it? Well, there's opportunities to have this paid for. And it's about getting creative. It's all the things we have done in the past can no longer happen now. It just won't fly. And it's time that whatever we're doing today, and these decisions that we make today, leaders today, and I was really painful to watch in the last council meeting. It was cringy, but that was painful, because the decisions that they made last week and before are going to affect, my kids, our future, our community for generations. So any type of planning needs to have purpose and meaning, needs to have a community involvement. And how is this going to better our city? How is this going to better in terms of our economy, and also the educational side and safety? There's a lot that needs to be involved. That needs to happen. I just do not see that. I don't see that. And I don't see that our current leadership is actually across the board, not just within our city. This is very familiar, right? Even outside, within our county, our state and federal, that decision, and hearing other, the local community and their constituents' voices and their concerns about certain types of building, and also policies passing. How is this going to affect future generations? What is it going to do? And so I understand my daughter's anger. I understand the protests. I was out there in Vista protesting as well, peaceful protesting. And I understand that, and listening to, there were so many young people. There really were. There were, I would say, more young than there's about a mix, but mostly young people, because they're concerned. Who wouldn't be? All of the decisions that we're doing now will affect them in the future. So that's where I'm at. And the Lost Generation, if you're familiar with the original Lost Generation of World War I, taking a look at that Lost Generation who fought in World War I, when they came back to the U.S., I get this totally, they were thinking, geez, what is happening here? This is America. This is what I fought for. So that the Ernest Hemingways and the artists that, I would say the veterans turned artists and book writers and poets went to France to escape the racism, the gaps between the poor and the ultra rich. Sound familiar? Just a lot of the systemic issues that we see today. Fast forward to 2020. This is where we're at. Actually, coincidentally, it was a roaring 20s that happened, and we're repeating ourselves again. I'm a combat veteran, and I definitely do believe that many Americans need to get outside of America to see what's going on, to understand that there's a lot more happening out there, and there's some ideas that we can definitely take bits and pieces of to make a better America. So with that, I'm not sure if anybody has any, I've been busy running throughout the day. I'm not sure if our marketing team had a chance to post on our Facebook, but I was looking to hear from you. I really want to hear from our community. I'm not sure if we have capability to put you on here live, but if anything, we can try to answer questions. I want to hear from you. I know we're not able to have a town hall meeting, but I'm totally open to talking, to get to know your concerns, and I want to be able to try to solve some of those concerns or hear them. I wouldn't say solve them here, but at least we could talk about them and have a continuing conversation on how we can build this better Vista and build a Vista strong that I believe we all deserve. A Vista with purpose of moving forward. A Vista where there's job creation and so on and so forth. And also a Vista where there's not high unemployment. I know right now there's a whole lot of planning that needs to be involved in regards to, we don't know what the effects are going to be from this current COVID-19. And these are the things that we need to be taking a look at, and also taking a look at funds, because I don't know, at least I haven't read anywhere else that any other cities within the county have been doing layoffs like our city. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're maybe the only one, if not very few, that are doing this. So that goes to tell you that there was not a whole lot of planning going on there. And that's one of my initiatives, is to ensure that there's planning in regards to safety, and also planning for any types of disasters, and not just planning for next year, but 20 years, 50 years, 100 years out. And these are the type of things that we absolutely need. So with that, I want to turn it to the people. I want to hear from you. Michael, do we have any questions from anybody?
We have a lot of comments, and I've been putting them up while you're chatting. So a lot of them are about the treatment of your people and just Native Americans in general, and a lot of the truth. Some of the, you mentioned it earlier. It's sharing that truth is, and it's a challenge. If you haven't experienced it, it's hard to hear. And so a lot of the comments, talking about, you just looking at the kids and seeing that they were sold, for $10,
Right. Yeah.
And that's just a fraction of it. Where, the $5, for unimaginable things now that, we don't even talk about it, because it's like, it's just unbelievable. But yes, so definitely there is the amount of comments that you have on here. Thank you, Ivan, Jenny. It's amazing with the support that you have. And if you are of this generation that, Liz was talking about, and you want to come on the show, I did put a link in there. If you want to come on here, or in the future, we have that ability that you can just join and speak your mind with Liz on this platform. With that, if there is direct questions for Liz or her platform, or even her perception on what's going on with the current generation, the lost generation of 2020, your questions can go in the chat, and I can bring them up and she can address them. Let's see here. but yeah, definitely, I'm pretty impressed. You've already got like 88 miles in the books on your run. Um, this is it's a feat in itself. I think that you're approaching this campaign and advocacy on multiple different levels, and I mean, it's so one of the things that, if you're just tuning in now and you're hearing about this and you do want to support Liz, you can, on her website, vistavoteperez.com, there is a sign up and a registration page that you can go on there and virtually run with her. She's also, she has a donation page for her campaign, but then there's also links on there for the Mono Nation and the museum. So if you go onto Facebook, you can look at those links too. So on all these different fronts, if you're not able to run with her virtually, you can help her and support her in different ways. So please do so.
And I just wanted to mention too, and with the museum and the nonprofits, I'm putting that there as a tribal citizen, and like if I could separate myself as a candidate for a moment, because it's so important that we preserve our history and culture. I think with my tribe and a lot of tribes here in California, and I'm sure across the nation, we need a cultural revitalization. We do, uh, to just get that back. We're so hungry for it, and then also, again, speaking as a citizen, with that, we need to preserve our ancestral artifacts. We used to have a museum, and due to a lot of the storms, that museum right now is under construction, a lot of construction pretty much, and it's not open. So having the funds to do that is absolutely necessary. And then also, one of the stereotypes, I'm sure people have heard this plenty of times, is that, oh, you're native, you must have a casino, or you have a lot of money, right? No, actually we don't. We're the third largest tribe in the state of California, and unfortunately we're also one of the most or highest unemployed tribes, going through that, and then also socially economically deprived as well, not just during this time, um, but exponentially during this time. That's always existed. So it's, and our governor, he used the word genocide um, for California Native Day back in September of last year. And so, but we're still experiencing that genocide. It wasn't then, it's actually now, but in a different form. And that's environmental genocide, that's economic genocide, because the opportunities are lack thereof. And with that is just that awareness, and speaking again the truth, and wanting to have that change, and not just talking about it, but actually being a part of that. So again, I'm encouraging people within my tribe to run for office, and get their name out there, and not just for tribal government, but also local community, and that is just so necessary, so our voices can be heard. And I'll shift that same message to our young people. If now's not the time for you to run, then get behind somebody that you support, that has a similar message that you have, and get behind that candidate that you would like to see go into office. Support them, and then from there, get groomed, and then you run. That's how we make change. That's how we do these things, and also listening to the community. And I'm all about that. So yes, this run it's brutal. Again, the first day was probably surprisingly, the first day was was probably the brutal day. It's not that the second and third days it's become easier, but it's actually, I'm not sure. I think it's more mentally, and I think where we're at today too is, I kind of think about this. It can't be as painful as what my ancestors went through, and it's definitely not as painful as the generations of my tribe have gone through. And that pain also of running has also given me the awareness of the pain that all of us feel right now. And we're so hungry for change. And that's why I say we need to run. We do, in so many ways and so many levels. So I would love to hear from you. If it's not at this platform, probably not next week. I think the next lunch at Liz, we'll probably postpone it next week to recover from this. And then
and we
maybe
do,
next weeks.
and Liz, you do have two really good questions. So when you're ready,
Oh,
we
okay.
can
Let's
pull those
do
up.
it.
So, all right. The first one is Liz, how will you help connect our youth to tier one jobs that provide high wages, healthcare, pay time off, and can't be outsourced?
That is a really good question. That's like a sandwich question there. So on the tier one jobs and the high wages, I think what we have in Vista, we really need to take advantage of, and what that is that we have a lot of large corporations within our city and also North County. So not only taking a look at what companies exist within our city, but also working with other leadership to connect with the basically other corporations within North County. It's not just about Vista, it's about North County and collaboration and communication. That is key. And then also understanding what jobs that they have and making those readily available within our city and our website, like a rapid response, because there's so much changing right now with COVID. Uh, a lot of the jobs that used to exist don't exist, and there's jobs coming in. And especially right now, we need to have a close relationship with our economic development team, and then also take a look at, again, not doing business as usual as they did in the past, but take a look at creative response to that rapid response and the job needs, and provide that training. Taking a look at also what jobs used to exist. I think a lot of the hardest hit are restaurants. And I think along with that, basically a combination of the corporations, what jobs are out there, what are the new jobs that exist, existing jobs within corporations, what are the new jobs that are emerging from this pandemic, and then also take a look at creative ways and funding as well, how we can basically grow our small businesses. And then there's another step too, taking a look at what small businesses are suffering through this pandemic, and how do we enable them to basically come out of this. And there's a lot of training that needs to be involved in all levels. It's basically like that saying in the Navy, all hands on deck. Is absolutely all hands on deck, battleship moment, that we have to have all these different layers to respond to that question, because I do believe in a livable wage. Yes, we should have that. People should be able to have a living wage where they can make rent. They should be able to pay their mortgage, pay their bills, and not have 6 jobs, 5 jobs, 4 jobs, just to be able to make ends meet. So a living wage, but a part of that to get there has to be training, and that training in these technical type of jobs. And we do need to connect with our young people as this pandemic continues, and even beyond that, because it's going to be a long time before we get there. I know that's like a short answer, but that's something that's going to be, I would say, if I were in city council now, I would have a team. I would have a team dedicated to that, like a rapid response team on economic development, small business, and we'd work across different cities with their leadership and different corporations, and take a look at how do we get these jobs to our people. What jobs are out there? How do we get the training? Where are we going to get the dollars? That's what we need to focus on. There should be a think tank to make this happen. That's what I would do.
Well, thank you, Karina, for your question. Thank you, Jenny, Ray, so many that left comments and questions.
Is there another question? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. And so our next question is from Martha. How do you think the school district can collaborate with the city of Vista to address the challenges our youth is facing?
I think that I honestly believe that we need to invite by a Zoom, like a virtual Zoom, or because we can't meet in person, and let their voices be heard. And what do they call it? Jeez, I'm trying to a little my brain a little zapped out from being in the sun today. But there's different types of hearings, or it'll come to mind. But basically, a even a study. First, you have to hear the youth. That's got to happen. Two, there needs to be a study on what decisions. I would love to see this actually. What decisions our city has made in the past that has basically not enabled our youth to benefit from, and imagine the different types of programs that we could have, infrastructure that could have been built versus something else. I think that's where we need to focus on, is what mistakes have we done in the past, and how do we not repeat that. But first, our I say kids, but anybody's younger than me, I wouldn't say they're a kid, but definitely our youth. And my son, he's 12 years old. He has the same concerns, believe it or not. And that's why he's out here running as well, because he doesn't want these the same mistakes to happen again. And I believe a lot of our children want change. And I say young voters, that's ages early 20s to 34. So we need to have a wake-up response. Again, all hands on deck. Our city leadership needs to hear from the people, and particularly our youth. And I would love to see, I think we absolutely need a study on what building, what decision policy, in regards to education-wise too, what lack thereof didn't happen. How is it, impacting our generation today? How do we prevent that from happening tomorrow? That's what's needed, absolutely. Because again, we cannot continue with the same status quo leadership, the passive leadership. Oh, this is how it's always been kind of leadership, or this is my way kind of thing. I think it's really time that we work together and hear each other. And a part of that, it's going to take work. It's not going to be easy. Absolutely not going to be easy. But you know what? Guess what? This run isn't easy. So I'm up for the challenge. I'm up to hear, what different ways that we can, better our community and work towards that. Because I do believe that even despite, yes, my daughter said lost generation. I don't believe they're lost. I believe it seems that way, especially right now because it is a storm. But through this storm, I said it once, there's definitely vision within the storm. There's opportunity because we know where this can go, but we don't want it to go there. And at least I don't. That's why I'm here. This is why I'm out here running to make that change, to put that point that I'm over it. I'm over the old way. We can't do it. It is not healthy. It is not going to help our future generations. And I want to give this, the younger generation, as my daughter said, the lost generation, I want to give them hope when they just feel so hopeless right now. Like, can I, how am I going to pay back my student loans? How am I going to be able to live? I mean, should I have children? I can't afford to have children. That's some real stuff. This is what's happening. And a lot of our young voters, they don't believe in the party system. And I don't know what that looks like, how many, but a lot of them don't believe in the party system. So I can keep going on, but maybe what we need is a town hall next meeting. I would believe that is absolutely what we need. Yes. What was that, Martha? Let's see. We'll cover it. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. And I know that's, Karina, that's why she wanted to run. And now she's making the change. Karina's a prime example of that. It's like, look, I can't, she didn't want it, she couldn't, continue that way and see her community, suffer. And so she's out there trying to make the change. But, when, just like when I was in Sacramento, when there's not enough of that support when you're there, like it was for me, things just don't exactly go that way. That's why we need the right representation that reflects our communities and that vision that our constituents, our the people, our community want and need. So, yep. Michael, was there any other questions?
Where let's see here. Oh yeah, another comment. Martha also
Katie,
mentioned
yes.
Katie. So
Yes.
I think that's the wraps up our questions for today. I think what I'll do is bring up a couple of your sites so that way they can sort of follow in your journey. So if anybody has, when you're looking at supporting her, definitely follow up Perez at vistavoteperez.com. On there, you can learn a little bit more about her platform and what she's trying to strive for Vista. On there, there's also the donation page. So if it, if you have the means of helping her, support her in her campaign, then definitely do so. Definitely follow her on Facebook. She is posting every day. She's showing you what the road looks like out there. It's pretty amazing. Right now, let's see here. You got 88 miles in the books done so far. You've got 123 more miles. Also on our website, you can do the virtual run with her, but Facebook, you get to see the pictures, see the support. Tell us a little bit about the support you're getting from the different law enforcements and agencies along the way. That's say a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I coming out here, I made sure that, we're doing everything legit and like any permits that we need or, making sure that we're, dotting I's, crossing the T's. And a lot of the community here has been very supportive, especially the California Parks and Rec. They gave me a tour and they're very familiar with the history of Fort Tejon. Also, Kern County, want to give a shout out to the Kern County County Map Room that helping me put together the map. So staying on these county highways here can be a bit tricky and finding out which ones are open and safe to jog on as well. And then just crossing into Tulare County, their sheriff department had asked if I was okay and do I really mean to be running out out in the heat in the middle of the afternoon. And I said, no, I really mean to do this. And we were talking, but basically they were very helpful. And shout out to the Tulare County Sheriff. Just let me know that during my run, because Tulare still have quite a ways to go, if I need their support and any safety concerns, they'll just keep an eye out for me. I'm running on the 43. Also, and Madera as well, same thing, and being sure that everything's safe, because those highways are pretty gnarly, and staying safe is key. And also I'm going to be doing an interview here in about, I want to say, like a few hours or so. Fresno Bee caught wind of the story, so I'm not sure when that'll be out. Possibly tomorrow, maybe Saturday, I'm not sure, but you'll probably see it. Well, actually, we're in San Diego, so it'll be here in the Central Valley, but I'm sure it'll get shared as time goes on. But just wanting to understand that history of California, Central Valley, Native Americans, and the untold history of the Central Valley natives. It's out there. Dr. Medley from UCLA has done a lot of research, and actually he wrote a book along with different of his students there. I think it was about 15 years worth, and it's called the California Native American Genocide. About 90% of California natives are not, basically not here. So a lot of that history and the truth was buried along with them, unfortunately. And it took a lot of research and journals that were kept by some of the native families, and then also from some of the soldiers that also served during that time, putting those stories together and finding out what the true story was. I always knew that story growing up and knowing about it, not really knowing all of the story, but as years progressed, understanding it more, and it's just so timely, now that we're here. And take a look at these again, different suppressed populations. And Native Americans, we serve in uniform. We have the highest population that serve in uniform across the nation. And you take a look at that, and then coming back home and trying to connect with our benefits. It's very difficult when you're talking a tribe that is isolated and you can't get to the VA. And that's why you have high rates of suicide within Native American veterans and PTSD. So that's another reason why I'm running, because those are the challenges and those issues I was trying to solve while I was serving as deputy secretary. But there was other challenges there too, because I was also an underrepresented part population in Sacramento. So again, back to that is why we all need to run, so we have the right representation in these government positions and appointed positions. And I encourage you to do that. And I'm happy to provide information, mentorship, anything I can do. If I don't know the answer, I'll connect. So, but thank you for being here today and listening to me. I know we went completely over a half hour, but I guess there was a lot to say. And again, the Lost Generation of 2020, I want to change the title, but I think it's something that we need to say the truth. And part of that truth is, unfortunately, that title. But I want to talk more about that. And I would love to have you on our show, Liz, Lunch with Liz segment. Feel free to reach out to me, info@VistaVotePerez.com. That's info@VistaVotePerez.com. Take a look at our website, and that's VistaVotePerez.com. And let me hear from you. If you want to get your voice heard, if you want to be a part of Lunch with Liz, and if you have any questions, do give us a call, shoot us an email, or find us on Facebook and message us. We'll answer. So with that, I think we're done. Michael, do you have anything, last closing thoughts?
I think we had a lot of engagement today. A lot of people are sharing what you were talking about, and so I think we have a lot to sort of just sit with and figure out. Okay, what can we do?
Right.
And whatever stage of life we're at, what can we do to move forward instead of what can't be done. Let's think about what can be done.
Right.
And so thank you, Perez. Thank you for everybody for the comments and questions. Let's see here. We got so the aspects that I look forward to next week or the following week. So definitely reach out to Liz, and if it's up to you, Liz, when you want to sign off. So
I think we'll see you in 2 weeks. What day is that? I'm not even sure. But I think we're going to take a break next week so I can recover from the rest of this run and kind of get back in the swing of things. But I want to say you'll see it here soon. Our next scheduled Lunch with Liz will probably be on July 16th or the 23rd. But you'll see it shortly, definitely before the end of the week. So everybody stay safe. Keep running. Get active out there. Active running for change within your communities, and be a part of that. So continue on. Take care, everybody.